Welcome everyone to a very special game. We have Zhu Jiner, one of the best female players in the world of chess, on our screens. She's the current world number 4 in women's chess, but was world number 2 a month ago, and she is taking on the best in the business, Magnus Carlsen. It will be interesting to see if Magnus manages to win his game because he did lose his previous one against Jordan Van Forest. We have the guest here who's going to make the first move. Magnus like, you can play anything that you like. Pawn to e4. Will Magnus keep that pawn on the board like he did the last time, or will he take it back? Seems like Magnus. No, he takes back the pawn to e4 this time. Handshake and off we go. Magnus has played Ho Yifan in classical chess in somewhere around 2017 2018, and there was one draw at some point, but apart from that he's beaten her several times. And if Zhu Jiner manages to beat Magnus, that would be huge. Knight to f3 played. Bringing the knight out, and Zhu Jiner plays pawn to d5. We have pawn to g3. The Reti opening. Bishop g2 castles. Zhu Jiner plays her knight out to f6. Bishop g2, and now pawn to c5, gaining space. When black does play d5 and c5, one must understand that it's actually reversed King's Indian that's happening. g6 means that Zhu Jiner wants to play the fianchetto system. d3, and now bishop g7. This is very interesting way to play this position, because usually black players are going e6, bishop e7 and castles, but with g6, bishop g7, your king feels more safe when it castles. Wonder how that changes things. Pawn to e4 played, and I believe black can simply castle now. That's what Zhu Jiner does. Magnus calmly brings his rook to e1. And now maybe takes, queen c7 is one way to play, but Zhu Jiner pushes the pawn forward, pawn to d4, and she may want to go pawn to e5, but before she can do that, Magnus pushes forward with e5. Wow. Knight goes to d5. Now remember, if you had gone here and attacked thrice, I would have defended it with knight c4. So knight to d5, and Magnus pushes his pawn to a4. We have pawn to h6 played, stopping knight g5 ideas and preparing bishop e6, queen d7. Knight goes to c4, and now bishop e6 makes a lot of sense. I like how Zhu Jiner is playing this. She may go queen d7, king h7, at some point go for f6 break, maybe bishop h3 on the cards. Magnus goes bishop to d2. And now knight b6. Not so sure if she needed to do that. I mean, queen d7 did look like fine. But now b3 played to solidify the knight on c4. If you take, I take back, opening up the b file. Knight comes back to d5. I don't know if Zhu Jiner got a lot by provoking b3. I do understand that c3 is weak, and Magnus makes an inaccuracy. He goes wrong here. g5 played. In fact, he could have started with here provoking king h7, and then so that if g5 there's bishop e4 check, and then sack here. But knight h4, g5, knight has to come back to f3, and now queen d7. So Zhu Jiner's position has improved. h4 played by Magnus. He is hitting on this weak pawns. g4, And now the knight goes back to h2. Maybe Zhu Jiner can play h5. She's better against Magnus Carlsen with the black pieces after just 17 moves. That's insane. Queen c1. Magnus wants to go bishop h6, queen g5, take advantage of this slightly extended position. f6 played. It's a nice move. And Magnus goes bishop h6. Okay. Black king does look a bit weak for sure. Rook f7. I like this move because you're kind of shoring up your weaknesses in the position. And how is Magnus going to react here? He goes pawn to f3. Now that's not a good move at all. If king h7, bishop takes, rook takes, and the other rook coming here, suddenly everything's weak. Can Zhu Jiner find it? King h7 is a good move. There are also other moves like knight b4. And I mean, this could be very serious edge. Very serious. She goes bishop h8. Not the best move. But still fine. Well, I mean, I can understand she's afraid of the queen entering into the position there. For sure. And now Magnus is back in the game. And he takes e takes f6. Taking back with the pawn seems like a good idea because it controls these two squares. But takes back with the bishop, which is also quite tempting to be honest. But now, I'm not so sure because, by the way, you have to take care of your time. Magnus down to 12 minutes with 19 more moves to make. Fg. And now Hg. Taking back with the pawn. But suddenly you see this bishop could come to e4. Comes back to g5. And you know, there's always this rook takes e6 idea lurking around. So Zhu Jiner goes back with bishop h8. And Magnus now brings his knight to f1. The position is so complex that both players are going wrong, but I do understand Magnus controlling the square on e3 and g3. Those are the weaknesses in his position. Zhu Jiner now jumps into c3 with her knight. That was the square that she had weakened by provoking b3. So it's come to good use for now. The knight is looking at a very important square on e2. Knight d2 played by Magnus, but now bishop d5 would be such an epic move because you trade off one of the best pieces that white has. And I think Zhu Jiner is goes for it. Bishop d5, lovely chess. I love how Zhu Jiner is putting Magnus under pressure, not only on the board but also on the clock. Knight to e4 played, and now there's this epic move which is super tough to find. Rook f3 takes, and with queen h3 coming, and this is really good for black, but she doesn't play it. She takes bishop e4. Well, rook f3 was just too difficult to play. Bishop and to assess, that too with just 6-7 minutes on the clock. Bishop e4. And how Zhu Jiner continuing, maybe rook f8 with the idea of rook f2, I don't know. Rook f8, there's bishop h6, that becomes, oh, she plays it, rook f8. But will Magnus go bishop h6? And yes, he plays it. But now the only move, if you waste time moving the rook away, queen g5 check is powerful. So queen c7, the only move to attack, and she finds it. g3 pawn under pressure. Magnus goes queen g5 check. And now the only move is rook g7, because if you play bishop g7, queen g4, white is completely dominating. For Zhu Jiner, who has 3 minutes on hand, This is not an easy position to play. Will she be able to play rook g7 or not? She plays it. Bishop takes g7. And now first queen g3, an intermezzo, and Zhu Jiner takes it. Look at Magnus there. Is he worried? Is he tensed? King h1, there's queen h3. Repeating. So bishop goes back. And now bishop g7. The g4 pawn has been defended. She takes it. We are on move 31. 9 more moves to make. Magnus has 2 minutes 55 seconds. Zhu Jiner has 3 minutes 32 seconds. And this is looking dangerous for Magnus with the queen here, the rook here, the knight looking here. Oh my god, you can see Magnus visibly worried. King h1 played. And now rook f2. Boom. Let's enter in. Plays it. And rook g1, the only move. Otherwise you are mated. Well, you want to play knight e2 here, but there's check and it's trouble time. Because the queen is hanging. So e6 played to block this check. But better was king f8 to block the check. And if you play here, I have knight e2. e6 on the board. It's a natural move for sure. Rook f1. Beautiful move by Magnus. And now I guess you can go knight e2. She plays it. Magnus takes on f2. Queen f2. Now the g1 rook is hanging. So if you go rook f1, there's check and you lose the exchange. So Magnus has to move the rook away. And he goes rook a1. And actually that's a great understanding by Magnus that he's better. Now king f8 is the best move. But knight g3 check gives a check. King h2, no more checks here. And somehow white's position has improved manifold. This knight is not doing much. The white knight is amazing. Bishop is pinned to the king. And these two pieces are not enough to finish off the attack. So knight to f5. But now Magnus simply snatches the pawn. Which gives him a great position. Queen takes g4 taken. And now queen takes c2. And rook to e1. And somehow all the pieces of white are coordinating beautifully. And rook e2 breaking the pin. If you play queen takes d3, there is bishop e4. So otherwise you can take on b3. She does take on d3, but after bishop e4, it's over. Because if you go queen c3, I have bishop f5, ef5, check, king f7, and knight d6 with a mate. So Magnus ready to play this move, bishop e4. He plays it, and he's got the job done. But the job was not easy. Far from easy. Zhu Jiner made him sweat. And she resigns there. Magnus Carlsen comes back with a win. Moves to 3 out of 5. But one must really appreciate the play of Zhu Jiner. She says rook f8 maybe wasn't the best. And Magnus like, I just don't know, because I never expected to get into so much trouble. And you know, Magnus's expression is that of a person who saw too many lines in the game, but not many that worked for him. And Zhu Jiner was like, I guess Magnus like, why did you go back and come back? And she's like, I wanted to provoke b3. And then this king h7 move, I think that was the major one. Because I think that would have given Zhu Jiner so much of play on the g file. I love how she is carefully talking with Magnus. I think one of the big advantages of playing this tournament is to get this post-game analysis session with Magnus. You could see Arjun making good use of it, and now Zhu Jiner as well, who usually does not talk to her opponent, but playing Magnus is such an honor. And Zhu Jiner, you did amazing today.